meeting on December the 2nd. It gives me great pleasure to welcome everyone to the 2020 annual organizational meeting for the Halton District School Board. I am Stuart Miller, Director of Education, and I will be chairing this meeting until a new chair of the board is chosen. Prior to starting, I'd like to do a roll of the trustees, and I will start in the order in which I can see you on my screen. Trustee Daniele.
Yep.
Trustee Vindalankara.
I'm here, thank you.
Trustee Garretts.
Good evening.
Trustee Oliver.
Good evening, everyone.
Trustee Collard.
Good evening.
Trustee Rocha.
Good evening.
Trustee Al Harrison.
Hello, everyone.
Trustee Grabentz.
Hi, everyone.
Trustee Gray.
Hello.
Trustee Reynolds.
Hi, everybody.
Trustee Shuttleworth.
Even when it's on the screen order, I come near the end. Good evening, everyone.
It's deliberate. It's deliberate. Trustee Amos.
Good evening, everyone.
Trustee Taylor.
Good evening, everybody.
And I think that's everyone. Have I missed anyone? Thank you. Director Miller, who here is from staff? Thank you. I'll tell you who's here from staff. All superintendents are here, plus Dr. Jewel Amoa and Manager Gail Gortmaker and our technician, Kevin Raposo. Thank you, Director Miller. Turn it back to Director Miller. Thank you. As per the Education Act and the board's bylaws, as director, I will conduct the opening portion of the inaugural meeting of the board. To begin, I will ask Trustee Daniele to provide the acknowledgement of traditional lands.
Thank you. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations in the Métis, from the Anishinaabe to the Attawadarand, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis. These lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions in the Métis: the land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walk before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us.
Thank you, Trustee Daniele. I'd like to call attention to the item on the agenda regarding declarations of possible conflict of interest. If trustees have a potential conflict with tonight's agenda items, I'd ask them to declare them now. It would appear there are no trustees in conflict of interest. Next is approval of the agenda. Can I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda, please? Moved by Trustee Grabentz, seconded by Trustee Oliver. All in favor? Show of hands because I don't have the voting machine. All opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now to the election of the chair for 2021. In accordance with the board's bylaw, I will now call for indications of interest in the position of chair by randomly drawing the names of trustees as from this pot, and I will show the names on the screen as I draw them. As their name is drawn, each trustee will be given the opportunity to indicate their interest and or indicate support for any other trustee. Student trustees do not participate in this part of the election. Certainly welcome and comment later. Following this process, trustees who have confirmed their interest in the position of chair may speak to their candidacy for a period no longer than 3 minutes. Trustees will be offered the opportunity to speak in the order in which they expressed their interest. Our scrutineers for tonight are Superintendent of Education Gord Truffin and Superintendent of Business Services and Treasurer Roxana Nagoy. So before I start drawing any names, are there any questions? It's a little anticlimactic without a drum roll and the audience, but here I am. First name. Can you see the names on there? Can you see it on my screen? I'm going to say Trustee Collard.
Oh, thank you very much, Director Miller. I am not interested in pursuing this role.
Thank you. Trustee Daniele.
Thank you very much, but I am also not interested in pursuing this role.
Thank you very much. Trustee L. Harrison.
Just a little bit higher, I think.
How's that?
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I will pass.
Thank you. Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much, Director Miller. I will pass on this opportunity this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Grabentz.
I would be honored to serve the board, so I will put my name forward.
Thank you. Trustee Oliver.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, but I respectfully decline, and I would be happy to support Trustee Grabentz.
Thank you. Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. I too respectfully decline this invitation, and I thank you, Trustee Grabentz, for putting your name forward tonight.
Trustee Shuttleworth.
Not at the very end. Thank you for the questions. At this point in time, thank you. I will pass. I also would gladly support Trustee Grabentz.
Trustee Amos.
Thank you for the opportunity. I will decline this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Garrett.
Thank you for the opportunity. I will decline at this time, and my support goes to Trustee Grabentz. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, but by no means least, Trustee Rocha.
Thank you, Director Miller. I will decline the opportunity, and if I am the last person on the list, then I will throw in my full support for our former chair, Trustee Grabentz.
Thank you. So it looks like we could dispense with the work of the scrutineers, Gord Truffin and Roxana Nagoy, who trained for weeks for this position today and had to audition, but we won't need you for the chair. We may need you for the vice chair. So I'm happy to say normally the people nominated or would have an opportunity to speak, to sway others, but there's not a need for that. So I will just say this, and then she will be able to speak. If I declare Andrea Grabentz acclaimed as chair of the Halton District School Board for 2021. Well done. Congratulations, Andrea.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all your support. And we'll move on to the election of the vice chair, and then I'll have some further comments after that, as well as the vice chair, I'm sure will. Okay, so Oh, I'll have to get out a randomizer because I don't have your special bucket of names in front of me.
Perhaps Stuart could draw them for you.
That would be great.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay.
I see someone walking up to the board office who looks like Rudy Giuliani. Maybe he's got some questions about the election.
So, Director Miller, if you could please go through your Vanna White impersonation.
I will. I'm just folding them back up. Ready when you are, Chair Grabentz.
Go right ahead.
Trustee L. Harrison.
Hello, thank you. Yes, I would be happy to let my name stand for this position.
Trustee Collard.
Thank you. No, and I will be happy to support both Andrea and Tracy. Thank you.
Trustee Oliver.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity, and I will decline, and very happy to support Trustee Harrison. Thank you.
Trustee Garrett.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, but I will pass at this time and put my support to Trustee L. Harrison.
Trustee Amos.
Thank you for this opportunity, but thank you.
Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, but at this time I will decline and throw my support fully behind Tracy.
Thank you. Worth and Amos keep coming in pairs. Trustee Rocha.
I will decline. Thank you.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you, Director Miller. At this time, I will decline the opportunity, but I will indicate my full support of Trustee L. Harrison. Thank you.
Trustee Daniele.
Thank you. I will once again pass on this opportunity, and a great chair like Chair Grabentz needs an equally terrific vice chair, and Trustee Al Harrison has my full support.
And again, last but not least, Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. I decline this invitation, and thank you, Trustee L. Harrison, for putting your name forward to stand as vice.
Thank you.
Well,
And with that, Chair Grabentz, I can put the bucket away until next year.
Well, thank you very much, Director Miller, for pinch hitting there. And I am so happy to declare Vice Chair L. Harrison back in the vice chair position. So congratulations, Tracy. It's excellent. And I also wanted to thank Superintendent Truffin for actually working on that form that we didn't need to use to enable us to vote as a secret ballot. So we'll have that in our back pocket in case we have to be in this situation again. But I know some work went into that and pulled you away from other things. So I really appreciate the time that you took to do that. And normally, as you can see in our agenda, we would be having a motion to destroy the ballots, but we have no need to do that. So we are going to move forward, and we are up to a wonderful part in our agenda, which is to honor 7 people with Halton District School Board Inspire Awards. So everyone in the Halton District School Board community can nominate. Oh, I'm so sorry. Actually, we're going to do this, and then afterwards, myself and Vice Chair Harrison will say some words. I don't want to take the time away from the wonderful people who have supported our students. So I've started this, and I would like to continue it. So I hope people don't mind. And unfortunately, everybody's gone blank on my screen, so I can't see anybody's face.
I will just need a moment, Chair Gerbents, to get the presentation up and have your confirmation that it's up, okay?
Okay, that would be lovely. Thank you so much, Vice Chair Harrison. So everyone in the Halton District School Board community can nominate or be nominated. Families, neighbors, related organizations, staff, students, and school volunteers. The Inspire Award is given to an individual or group that is formally or informally associated with the Halton District School Board, who support our students and their achievements through exemplary caring, initiative, innovation, and creativity. As I mentioned, we have 7 recipients to honor this evening. And before each presentation, I will name the recipients and name the trustee that will be presenting. So I hope trustees have had an opportunity to access the presentation notes. They are part of the file I usually, part of the Q&A or other documents. So we will hopefully go forward. Again, I cannot see anybody's faces on any screen, so I can't see.
All good.
Pardon? All good?
All good.
Okay, wonderful. So we will start with Jennifer McCullough, and Trustee Shuttleworth will be presenting.
Thank you. Jennifer is the secretary in the main office at Nelson High School and is the first person people see when they enter the building. Jennifer's role is a challenging one and one that can change every day. She displays a welcoming and positive attitude and embraces each personal interaction and provides a calming approach. During the pandemic, Jennifer continues to support students and staff. She is consistently looking after students and families and reaches out to the administration when she hears about someone in need and helps out with the Nelson Nutrition Support Program. Jennifer inspires all of us to be better, kinder, and more compassionate to everyone. Congratulations, Jennifer.
Congratulations to you, Jennifer. Okay, the next name, and I really apologize, as someone with a last name that is not a generic last name, I know I cringe when when I hear my name pronounced incorrectly. So Janet Chalpka of Georgetown District High School. Jean Gray is the trustee presenting.
Thank you very much, Chair Gerbents. Janet Chalupka is the head custodian at Georgetown District High School. With constant dedication and a willingness to go beyond, Janet helps ensure the school community is a safe and welcoming environment for students and staff. No matter how busy her day is, Janet is seen with a smile on her face and always takes the time to listen to others to help solve problems. Everyone can always count on Janet to look out for the entire school community. Congratulations, Janet.
Okay, thank you very much. Congratulations, Janet. Okay, for our next presentation, you could put that up. Excellent. Oh, slightly out of order in our agenda. Again, I apologize, Chris. So the next award winner is Chris Mehodemos, caretaker at Georgetown District High School. And Jean Gray will be presenting.
Thank you very much, Chair Gerbentz. Chris is the night custodian at Georgetown District High School. His dedication and willingness to go above and beyond has made a huge difference in helping the school community remain a safe and welcoming environment. Chris is reliable, always has a smile on his face, and no matter how busy he is, he always makes time to listen and help. Chris, congratulations.
Congratulations, Chris. Next on our list is Nicola Gauntley, again from Georgetown District High School. Obviously, there's a lot of amazing people up at Georgetown District High School. Jean Gray, please continue.
And Nicola is no stranger to the Inspire Award, as I believe she received one while at Ethel Gardner and now at Georgetown. Nicola Gauntley is a volunteer at Georgetown District High School. She goes above and beyond to support students, parents, and families in the Georgetown community and in the school community as a larger group. She is the voice for parent community and helps connect the families at the school. She is a caring and thoughtful person who applies an inclusive approach in all that she does. It's evident that her focus is always to help others in the Georgetown community. Nicola, congratulations.
Congratulations, Nicola. The next award recipient is Jason Pearson from James W. Hill. Trustee Rocha will be presenting.
Thank you, Chair Gerbentz. Jason Pearson is a teacher at James W. Hill Public School, a long-standing member of the school staff. Jason has made a mark on many students' lives. Having taken a year's sabbatical to travel the world with his two young sons, Jason shared their experiences on a blog that the James W. Hill School community was able to follow and live vicariously through. Jason and his sons were even featured on the show, Hello, Goodbye. In the early days of the pandemic in the spring, Jason went above and beyond for his students and dropped off an activity book on one of the family's porch. His dedication, calmness, and patience has a profound impact on his students. Families say he truly embodies the true meaning of a teacher who cares about his students. Thank you, Jason.
Congratulations, Jason. Our next recipient, also from an Oakville school, Lisa McKenzie, and this will be presented by Trustee Joanna Oliver.
Well, it's my pleasure tonight to present the Inspire Award to Lisa McKenzie, who is a teacher at Garth Webb Secondary School. Lisa has been supporting staff wellness at the school for a number of years with a well-received weekly email for Wellness Wednesday. These emails include a plethora of information to support staff wellness, from recipes and exercise suggestions to inspirational quotes and ideas to support students. Lisa has provided staff an important vehicle for support. Her dedication and desire to support her fellow colleagues' physical and mental health and well-being is very much appreciated and does not go unnoticed. Congratulations, Lisa.
Congratulations, Lisa. And our last, but certainly not least, recipient for this evening is Jessica Watson. And Trustee Gray will be presenting.
Thank you very much. Jessica Watson is a special education resource teacher at Mackenzie Smith Bennett Public School. She has been nominated for an Inspire Award in recognition of the care and attention she has provided to families in her school, including the support for a particular student transitioning to grade 1. Kind and considerate, Jessica treats her students as if they were part of her family. She always makes time to support families and provide important guidance in navigating behavioral plans, individual education plans, safety plans, and above all, ensuring every child is supported in their own unique way. Congratulations, Jessica.
Congratulations, Jessica, and congratulations to all the Inspire Award recipients this evening. Your work and dedication show outstanding support for the students of the Halton District School Board, and it is greatly appreciated. For everyone watching this evening, please do continue to nominate people or organizations who support our students and their achievements through exemplary caring, initiative, innovation, and creativity. The nomination form is available on the hdsb.ca website, and we accept nominations monthly. Thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, I got a little flustered, and so I have a few words to say as sort of an inaugural address for the upcoming year, and I'm sure Vice Chair Al Harrison will have words as well. So I wanted to thank you for entrusting me again with this mandate as chair of the board. As always, I serve at the pleasure of the board. Over the past year, education in Ontario has been a wild ride, but through challenge and adversity, opportunities do come forth. We have built stronger relationships with MPPs, the minister, and mayors, and advocated for the needs of our students, staff, and communities. The new high school in Milton is taking shape, and we have secured funding for much needed new schools in both Milton and Oakville, though we still have acute accommodation pressures in Oakville that desperately need addressing. We also continue to enjoy strong relationships with our union partners. Student achievement and well-being are at the heart of all we do. There are also no words to adequately express how impressive the accomplishments of the staff have been across the board this year. From the increased sanitizing responsibilities to adhering to masking, gowning, and cohorting protocols, moving into a completely digital communication mode with families, creating and pivoting into adjusted learning modes, schedules, and environments, to setting up an entirely new parallel virtual system at both the elementary and secondary levels in mere weeks, with the flexibility built in to adjust as necessary. It's amazing. The past 9 months have tested us all. March 13th, 2020 will be a date to remember in education in Ontario. That is the day that everything changed. Those next couple of months were a struggle for everyone and set expectations for a fall reopening. There was worry that there may be learning and wellness gaps for students and staff that needed to be addressed. The community was anxious in the summer about the learning and fearful about the environment. I'm sure that there have never been stakes so high for a successful September reopening in the Halton District School Board. The environment being truly unpredictable and ever-changing. Funding was unsure, but staff budgeted as best they could. Mandates for learning environments were unclear, but staff used their years of wisdom, experience, and public health advice to try to create the best and safest learning environments possible. Goals shifted with last-minute changes from the ministry, and the staff took it in stride, revamping the entire secondary model in mere days. Although the role of the trustee felt a bit lost in these initial months of the pandemic, the trustees of the Halton District School Board made sure to have the voice of the trustee heard at the ministry and beyond. We tried to educate about the adverse effects learning models would have on marginalized and struggling families with young children. We advocated for clear ministry messaging and for removing barriers to easily accessible and efficient COVID testing in the region. We also asked the minister to consider the shakeup within education as an opportunity to build back better. In the absence of a response, Halton District School Board trustees are looking for ways to do just that. Colleagues, what we have here at the Halton District School Board is wonderful and special. I appreciate what each of you bring to the table each week, as well as the extra time you put in to continually improve this board. I look forward to our good work for the students of Halton moving forward through 2021. Thank you very much. And with that, I will ask Vice Chair Al Harrison for some remarks.
Well, thank you very much. Firstly, let me say congratulations to you, Chair Grabentz. It's been a pleasure to serve as Vice Chair in your time of leadership. You have an infectious smile and laugh, an uncanny ability to predict how scenarios will unfold, and great strength at a local and provincial level as an advocate for this board and all students. Thank you to each and every one of my colleagues for trusting me with this role for the upcoming year. So, quick question. What do August 19th and November 30th have in common? Well, we might need some fact checkers on this, but I believe these were record-setting meetings for, at the very least, this Board of Trustees, senior staff, and the community, possibly for any HDSB board, although Trustee Amos and Daniele may correct me on this. So August 19th was the very longest single-day meeting I've ever attended at well over 10 hours. Can you believe it? There were over 3,500 viewers who tuned in to watch that day and night to hear about how the board was planning to welcome students back to school in a safe and engaging way. Then we had a meeting this past Monday for a single item, and it was less than 8 minutes. This may be the very shortest official board meeting in board history, or at the very least in our term. So I'm going to resist describing these meetings and the pandemic context that they were conducted in with any of the buzzwords that we've heard so much since life flipped on its side in March. I'm going to say that whether it be a long meeting, a short meeting, all meetings, and everything in between meetings, that this board did what needed to be done. Gratefully received information that represented thousands of hours of work from dedicated and innovative staff. Asked tough questions, heard very difficult truths, contributed expertise, and voiced the apprehensions, anger, and gratitude of the community. We passed meaningful motions to advocate for students in this community at the provincial level, and we valued community stakeholders and partners. At the heart of it all is our collective motivation to honor diverse student experience and voices and do the right thing by each and every student. So reflecting on our recent history helps me to figure out how to move through today and into this next year. Looking forward, you have my absolute commitment to be present, to listen to your ideas, learn with and support this group of trustees in growing strengths and leadership capabilities, to evolve our practices through collaboration, to share opportunity and credit. Together with staff, community, and students, we've got this. And let me end here with the way I started, which is thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and onward.
Thank you, Vice Chair Harrison. Excellent words. And I would love if our board meetings could meet definitely more towards that November 30th timeline rather than the August one.
Chair Grabentz, did I say just a few words about this?
Of course you can, Director Miller. Go right ahead.
I think I am speaking on behalf of the entire senior team and all the employees of the Halton District School Board that we are delighted that you have been acclaimed as chair of the board, and Vice Chair Al Harrison has been acclaimed as the vice chair. I very much appreciate the work of both you, chair and vice chair, and all the trustees with the support you have shown us, the senior staff, but more importantly, the support you have shown all the rest of our staff and the students of this board in some pretty difficult circumstances. We have worked collaboratively and have been led by you and have advised you and consulted with you, all of you. And I think we have put this board together in a very good place. And I think that's a great tribute to the leadership of Chair Grabentz and Vice Chair Al Harrison. And speaking as a director, I could not feel more supported and more gratitude for the work that you do with us, the integrity, transparency, honesty, and sometimes the difficult questions and the challenging ones and the disagreements, but they are always done respectfully, and they're always done with the same end in sight, support for the kids in this board. So on behalf of the senior team and all employees of the board, I thank you and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Director Miller. I'm going to move on in the agenda. So we have no delegations this evening, but we do have one presentation, a very important one. All our presentations are important, but I've had the opportunity to view this presentation in other places, and I think that I think this is a great place for the community to understand the direction that the board is going. So number 331, Human Rights, Equity, Action, and Accountability Plan, the Way Forward, will be presented by Superintendent Rob Etoff and his equity team. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much. And joining me this evening is Dr. Jewel Moa and Mary Marshall, who is our Assistant Principal of Equity and Inclusive Education. And Mary is hopefully going to drive the slides for us, if that's possible. I have a couple of slides to help walk us through some of the critical aspects and components of the multi-year plan. No, not the multi-year plan, the Human Rights Equity Action Plan. Thanks, Mary. And we'll just start on slide number 2 would be great. So through the chair, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you about the recently developed HDSB Human Rights Equity Action and Accountability Plan. As I mentioned, joining me this evening is Mary Marshall, as well as Dr. Jewel Moa. Both have been instrumental in the development of the plan, as have been the members of the equity team, Alexis Stephen, Aaron Walsh, Shannon Morgan, Eric Kune, Tammy Hardwick, Kelly Gray, and Karmajit Asanga-Boslin. The plan reflects the HDSB's commitment to create safe and inclusive learning and working environments, and ensures that human rights and equity are centered in the work across the Halton District School Board. The HDSB Human Rights Equity Action and Accountability Plan requires ongoing action on the part of every single individual, as well as all departments within the board, to identify, disrupt, and address systems of oppression as they operate within the organization. This plan identifies strategies and actions to ensure that all students, staff, and families are supported in schools and our workplaces by creating and maintaining equitable and inclusive learning and working environments. And in fulfilling our mandate and human rights commitments, proper implementation also requires that we hold one another accountable for our actions as well as our inaction. So moving into the next slide, just wanted to kind of speak about some of the considerations as we develop the plan. So throughout the development process, we spoke with students, staff, parents, and members of the broader community, particularly those who are a part of our marginalized communities or groups, that may have been underserved in the past. We met with these groups to identify strengths of current practice, as well as to identify challenges that have impeded our ability and their ability to fully engage and thrive in our schools and workplaces. The plan looks to leverage strategies that are already in place, as well as introduce new ones that align with ministry direction, as well as the Ontario Human Rights Code. The way forward is based on, I guess, 3 critical elements, and I'd like to speak to those at this time. In order to create safe, inclusive, and engaging learning and working environments, all staff must be committed to equity and inclusion for all students, and to be upholding and promoting human rights. A necessary and foundational step to creating such learning and working environments is to ensure accountability at all levels of the organization, to ensure equity and inclusion, as well as human rights. The way forward is based on a 3-pronged process, a cycle of strategy, action, and accountability. Strategy, of course, requires collaborative engagement and setting timelines, as well as measurable goals. Action is simply the implementation of the strategy. This is a somewhat simple, but yet critical component of the plan, as action is critical to affecting change. And often organizations may stay in the strategy phase, and due to various different barriers or detours or challenges, they never get to the action phase. And what we've heard from our community is it is time and it is critical that we take action. Accountability is a necessary component that the community has called for. It's a methodology to ensure that actions are properly monitored and revised as required. As educators and operational staff, we certainly understand the value of accountability for job performance, and the work of equity and inclusion is simply another component of job performance. So just providing a very high-level overview of the way forward, I'll begin by saying that Halton's, the HDSB's Human Rights Equity Action and Accountability Plan will provide direction for all areas of the board for the coming years. The priorities in the plan are closely aligned with the recently approved board multi-year plan. In alignment with the Ontario Human Rights Code, the ministry's equity and inclusive education strategy, the data collection processes directed initially through the Ontario Anti-Racism Directorate and mirroring Ontario's Education Equity Action Plan, 4 key areas are addressed, which encompass both the academic and corporate sides of our organization. The 4 areas of the plan include classroom instruction, school and workplace practice, leadership governance and human resources, data collection, integration, and reporting, and finally, organization, culture, and change. Within each of these categories, the Action and Accountability Plan outlines priority areas, specific commitments, strategies to focus on, and actions for implementation. Finally, accountability measures for items to guide the work. Over the course of the fall, we met with various internal and external stakeholder groups to share the plan. Some of these have been noted in the board report. Some of those groups include the HDSB's Indigenous and Racialized Educators Network, SEAC, Student Senate, as well as a variety of different community groups, as well as internal committees as well. We've received a great deal of informal feedback through our ongoing presentations and discussions. However, individuals were also invited to provide feedback through an online feedback form. To date, approximately 60 responses have been received from student, staff, parents, as well as our community partners. This information has and will be considered as we review and operationalize various components and actions in the plan. So in terms of feedback, obviously don't have the time to go through it all at this time. I've just provided three quotes for your consideration. But what I would say is, in terms of providing some overall summarizing statements in terms of the feedback collected, we were able to identify several themes. So one of those for sure is that stakeholders were absolutely enthusiastic about the commitments in the plan and accountability components built in. They were also very impressed with the intentionality with respect to ways of shifting organizational culture to enhance student achievement and well-being. And we know, as the saying goes, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So really getting at those different cultural components is absolutely critical. The comprehensive nature of the plan was also something that we had consistent feedback around. And the fact that it really reaches into every level of the organization. And finally, another common theme that was noted was really just them applauding the focus on, or having such a central focus on, human rights as the foundation for the actions within the plan, which is somewhat distinct when you look at other plans that other boards have put out there, as well as other organizations have put out there. Often it has just an equity focus and is really not founded in the basic principles of human rights. In terms of questions and concerns noted as part of the feedback process and for us to consider going forward, pace of implementation, there's a lot in the plan. So obviously concern about, number one, reaching our various different goals, but also looking at how best to do that and how best to time various aspects within the plan. It is not intended to be all implemented over the next 6 months. But there certainly is various components in the plan that have already been operationalized over the last couple of years, as well as several core components that are being operationalized currently. Also noted as questions for consideration were specific questions and concerns related to, how do you go about operationalizing some of the components in the plan, and that work will be given to various different departments, and they will have to look at a process for doing that. Monitoring and accountability measures to ensure compliance was also noted, as well as the distinct emphasis on anti-Black and anti-Indigenous racism, and questioning, how are other groups being represented within the plan, and them maybe not reading into some of the components within the plan that and not recognizing that the broad impact and intersectionality of many of the initiatives, such as CRRP, or culturally responsive and relevant pedagogy, that is something that impacts and is far-reaching in terms of having impact on many different groups within the board, not just those who identify as Black or Indigenous, as well as inclusive design, and certainly not to mention also our harmful and discriminatory language protocol. That as well is something that has far-reaching impacts beyond just those who identify as Black or Indigenous. So with that being said, going on to our next slide, ensuring transparency is critical to building awareness, as well as public confidence. As such, the way forward will be posted on the HDSB website and linked off of the Equity and Inclusive Education page. And we have the link there for you, included in the slide deck, and we will share that with you via email at trustees immediately following this presentation. And while it's not public at the moment, anyone within the HDSB who has a HDSB credentials can currently access that link. And we hope to get that live out to the public within the next couple of days. So with that, I would turn it back over to the chair and vice chair, and Mary, Jewel, and I would be happy to address any questions that the trustees may have at this time.
Thank you, Superintendent Etoff. I'm looking to the speakers list. See if there are any questions. And there are none at this time.
Chair Grants, may I just make a comment?
Of course you can. Go ahead.
I want to thank the work of Dr. Juliamo, Mary Marshall, Principal Mary Marshall, and of course Superintendent Etoff and the entire equity team. Personally, I believe, and I believe that's the will of this board, that there is actually no more important work than this going forward. We have had for many years students in our board, students in our society who ultimately go into being working members of this society who have been not included, left out, and perhaps even overtly excluded. And it's absolutely time that this was addressed, fixed, and resolved. And so I want to thank the leadership of our equity department in helping this, to bring this to us, and the parents and students who have confronted us with the reality of students not being successful because of who they are as opposed to what they're able to accomplish. So with that, I just wanted to make, I know that's the will of the board and I know that's the belief of the board as well, but I thought it was important as director that I echo those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Miller. And I would like to also say thank you on behalf of the trustees for bringing this forward. We look forward to updates on how things are going, and it is one of the most important things that we are doing. So thank you again, and we will move forward with our agenda now. So we are now up to our consent agenda. So Trustee Garretts, would you like to move a motion to deal with the consent agenda?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Excellent. Trustee Daniele, would you like to second?
Yes, thank you, I would.
Okay, I'm going to read the motion, put it on the floor. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the consent agenda action items and receive the information items for December 2nd, 2020. Are there any items that need to be pulled for discussion? I'm looking over to the speakers list. Okay, seeing none. Any other, and nobody's put up their hand for any discussion at all. So all those in favor? I've got 11 responses so far. Who am I missing? Trustee Oliver, I don't see your name on here, so there we go. That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we are now up to ratification action items. Vice Chair Harrison, do we have any business from private session that requires approval?
No, we don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we are up to action items for this evening. We have 5 action items. I'd like to draw your attention to the Director's Annual Performance Review Policy/Governance Procedure Report 20129. Vice Chair Harrison, would you like to move this item?
Yes, thank you.
And Trustee Gray, would you like to second?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to read the motion. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the Director's Performance Review Policy the gun and governance procedure as appended to report 20129. Is there any debate or comment? Okay. Seeing none, I believe. I know the form feels a bit slow. I know my connection feels slow tonight, so I'm a little anxious about making snap judgments about closing voting. But all those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, on to 522, School Naming and Renaming Policy Governance Procedure Report 20130. Trustee Oliver, would you like to move this item?
Yes, I'd like to move the item. Thank you.
Trustee Rocha, would you like to second?
Yes, I'd like to second. Thank you.
Okay. I'll put the motion on the table. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board send the naming and renaming schools policy and governance procedure to legal counsel for review. Is there any debate? Trustee Reynolds.
Hi, yes, thank you through the chair. This is actually just a comment, and it's just for clarity. I know my fellow trustees are well aware, but just for anybody who's perhaps watching, this naming policy is going to legal, but just to remind people that it will be coming back to our board. And I think that's not clarified in our motion, but that is our process. And I just wanted to highlight that because we've had questions from the community about this policy, and I just wanted to let them know that there's lots of opportunity left to speak to this once it comes back from our legal review. So that's a public service announcement, really.
Okay, thank you very much. Love the public service announcements. So there are no other speakers to this on the speakers list, so we will move to voting. So all those in favor of sending these off to legal review? There we go, and that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we are up to 523, Safe Schools Policy Report 20131. Trustee Collard, would you like to move this item?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Garretts, would you like to second?
Yes, I would. Thanks very much.
Excellent. I'll read the recommendation, and then Superintendent Padre-Bear can speak to it if he likes. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the Safe and Accepting Schools Policy as appended to Report 20131. Superintendent Padre-Bear, do you have anything that you would like to add to this?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Gerbents. Through you to the trustees. Just updates are noted in red, really just to the legal references which have come into act over the last 4 years since this has been updated. So I'm happy to answer any questions should they be out there, but otherwise I'll leave it to trustees.
Okay, thank you very much. Looking to the speakers list. Seeing no speakers, so all those in favor. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Onwards and upwards. Okay, number 524, Banking Resolutions, Report 20133. Trustee Reynolds, would you like to move this item?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to move it.
Thank you. Trustee Amos, would you like to second?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will read the recommendation. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the banking resolution, authority to sign, Appendix 1, banking resolution, current expenditures, Appendix 2, banking resolution, education development charges, Appendix 3, and banking resolution, facsimile signatures on checks, Appendix 4. Superintendent Nagoya, do you have anything you'd like to add to this?
Thank you, Chair Grabentz, and through you, Chair Grabentz, to all trustees. I just wanted to note 2 changes to the banking resolutions. We've removed the reference to borrowing from municipalities, which has not been the practice in the last number of years, as well as added approvals for the electronic funds transfers under the $50,000 range. We've had no changes to approvals above that limit, and also no change to the borrowing limit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And just looking to the speakers list to see if there are any questions at all. Seeing none, all those in favor? I'm just missing one response. Shuttleworth, I think. You're okay? Yes. Yep, all in favor? Okay, great. So that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. For the next item, I'm going to pass the gavel to Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Hello. So we're up to the Director's Goals, Report 20137 in your agenda package. And I'm just going to get to that report. And I believe there was an amendment to the motion, but I will read it in its entirety as amended, which is, be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the 2021 goals presented by the Director of Education appended to Report 20137. One second here. That the goals be posted on the board website and the process declared complete for this year. Chair Grabentz, would you like to move that motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much.
Okay, and Trustee Rocha, would you second the motion?
Yes, I would. Thanks.
Thank you. Chair Grabentz, would you like to speak to this report?
Yes, just briefly. This was the first time that I had chaired this committee, and under the amended process that we just worked on, and I feel that the process went quite well. During the process, Director Miller did announce his retirement, so people will see that the goals reflect that announcement. The opening section is about transition, and so we look forward to perhaps revisiting where these goals stand, close to mid-year with Director Miller, since his retirement is in August and won't be able to fill out the entire year under these goals. So we will probably also use these goals as a touchstone for the new director when that person is hired.
Thank you. I'm just going to look to the speakers list if there are any questions, comments, concerns. And I don't see any. Anybody by a show of hands? I know that was a scratch, Trustee Shuttleworth, not a raise of the hand. Okay, so one more check here. Seeing no speakers on the list, if you would kindly vote. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you for the report and chairing that committee. And I will turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you very much. So now we are up to communications to the board. And first off is item 6.1, student trustee reports. So Trustee Taylor and Trustee Vigilankara, do you have a report for us this evening?
Thank you, Chair Gebrents. Yes, we do.
Go right ahead.
So good evening, everyone. We hope that you are all well. Tonight, Trustee Taylor and I are going to be sharing with you some preliminary results from our unofficial HCSB Student Senate COVID Learning Experience Survey. But before we begin, we would just like to start off by acknowledging and expressing our gratitude for how hard the senior team has worked on establishing our back to school plan all the way back in the summer. We're almost 4 months into this very odd and unconventional school year, and yet the majority of students that have spoken to us have expressed how smoothly school is running. These are really challenging times, and it's a very different environment for myself and my peers. So we're really thankful to everyone that has worked so hard to make our school experience as enjoyable and as successful as possible. So at the last board meeting, Trustee Taylor spoke about our COVID Learning Experience Survey that was sent to student senators. And at our last Student Senate meeting, which was on the 24th of November, we had a chance to discuss the topic a little bit more. So just to kind of provide a rationale for our survey, this was our informal sort of Senate feedback form. The survey was open to both elementary and secondary student senators, and senators had the opportunity to share how they felt about their own learning experience, as well as the main concerns that they heard from students in their own schools. We also offered students the opportunity to make their own creative suggestions for improvements. And after speaking with our trustee mentors and student Senate staff advisors, we decided that it would be best to share our preliminary results from the survey at tonight's meeting because there were some common themes that we felt should be addressed sooner. Ultimately, the purpose of the survey was to ensure that students have a chance to advocate for themselves and for their peers and express how they feel their current COVID learning experience could be improved. We think that now more than ever, it's important to make sure that no student is left behind. And so with that, I'll pass it off to Trustee Taylor to share the key preliminary results.
Thank you very much. So one of the common issues we heard was surrounding the bright space and a lot of the classroom challenges a lot of students are facing. We received feedback that finding assignments and tasks can be very difficult, getting feedback can be very difficult, and we're receiving a lot of feedback that there's a big problem with the fact that there's no hands-on learning happening right now. Now, of course, we recognize that this is extremely difficult in these times, but a lot of students are coming to us saying that they would just like to see a bit of improvement in this area to really help engage them. Finally, with this topic, students have discussed concerns to us about being instructed to turn their cameras on when they are not necessarily comfortable doing so. The main suggestion we have heard from students in terms of addressing this issue is for teachers to go to a mandatory technology tutorial a few days before each quadrimester, just as a refresher to make sure they know what's going on with Brightspace. Another common theme that came up with when Trustee Vigilankara and I were going over the data of the surveys that we received was the zoning issues at recess with a lot of the elementary schools. So at recess, the elementary students must stay in certain zones with their cohort. And the issue we have heard with this is that kids don't have enough equal opportunities in different zones. Zones aren't big enough for some kids, and some zones have benefits that others do not. So we commonly heard that some kids were in smaller zones while others were in more spacious zones with a basketball net, such and such like that. And so some of the suggestions we heard were to rotate these zones weekly or have less students go outside at one time so that the zones can be bigger and more evenly distributed. Additionally, we have heard a lot of concern about the lack of social distancing around school when the final bell rings. So in both elementary and secondary school, I've experienced this, and I believe Trustee Vigilankara has experienced this as well. When school is out, kids are just standing around waiting. Now they're waiting for buses, they're waiting for a drive and what have you. But they're standing around, they're not respecting social distancing, they're not keeping masks on, and this is creating that end of day to be very unsafe for a lot of students. And so as much as it is okay, we can't force kids to leave right away, of course. We can hopefully encourage them to respect the public health guidelines, wear masks, socially distance, So the main suggestions we got were daily reminders, whether that be announcements, posters, whatever that would be. But also, my school does this. Teachers stand outside and start ushering kids away so that they're not all standing there talking, possibly spreading, whatever it may be, and social distancing. And now I'm going to pass it back to Trustee Videolankara.
Thank you. Another sort of main piece of feedback that we received was the importance of mask breaks. So many students found that it was really difficult to wear the mask and work for an extended period of time. So it was mainly secondary senators that expressed this, probably because they have like 3 hours of learning. But there were also a few elementary senators that shared the suggestion of maybe increasing the amount of breaks or lengthening the time that's spent outside without a mask. Secondary senators suggested that there should be a minimum of a 10-minute mask break, and if this is already a requirement, it should be more closely followed by staff. And elementary senators shared that they'd like to have 2 to 5 minute mask breaks between each period. Finally, some students also wanted to encourage that teachers teach the benefits of wearing a mask. So this is mainly elementary students, because it'll make students feel a lot more comfortable wearing them and kind of understand the importance of wearing them. Another piece of feedback, very common piece of feedback that we received was the importance of mental health and how a lot of students are experiencing mental health challenges as well as other like physical health related challenges. So part of the reason that students are having trouble with their mental health is because of the social element of school being greatly reduced and almost completely gone in many cases. And so this kind of leads to a lack of motivation, and some suggestions to improve this have been to have teachers maybe run mental health breaks in elementary schools. And in high schools, since you can't really afford to have that many breaks, maybe implement things like more breakout rooms during Google Meets, and just sort of have mental health check-ins for students and allow students to kind of work in groups, social distanced, of course, but kind of have that element of speaking in class. And so just like from personal experience, by no fault of anyone else, but just in general, like in class, we rarely really speak to each other because we're all kind of separated. So I think that for a lot of people, that social element is a really important factor in kind of maintaining their mental well-being. Finally, most students just ask that staff be more conscious of student mental health and check in as much as possible. Other sort of physical health related concerns that were brought up, the most common was eye strain. Being online causes students to stare at screens all day, and so having breaks from kind of that online learning could be helpful. As well, people talk about or students have expressed concern over migraines and things related to just the overuse of computers. And finally, the last sort of main concern or issue that was brought up at our Senate meeting was the importance of sports and other physical activities in schools. So we understand that OFSA canceled all sporting events this year. So this means that there's no sports teams in schools. But while regular school clubs are running virtually, senators expressed concern over the fact that there hasn't really been a plan for how sports can return. Senators were really enthusiastic about this topic, and they recognized the importance of sports to many students, and especially secondary students. And they felt that it would be great if sports could return in some manner, while still obviously within the sort of social distancing guidelines. Sports and other events are a really important part of the high school experience, and they build a better sense of community. It was also mentioned that some students are playing various sports on their own in a safe manner that's consistent with public health directives. So senators were wondering if this could be done in a more formal way, of course, adhering to social distancing measures in school. So for example, the way that gym classes are running in high schools in a safe and socially distanced manner. So not only is this something that really helps improve the mental health of students and the overall sense of community in a school, secondary senators also mentioned that some students are counting on continuing with sports in university and college, so it's important that they continue with this through their high school career. These were the main concerns that we heard and a few of the creative solutions that student senators shared with us. And I'll pass it back off to Trustee Taylor.
Thank you. So ultimately, we are very happy with the preliminary results we have obtained in the early stages of our survey. We do hope to finish collecting all of our data by the 16th so we can have a more complete, hopefully full understanding of how students are dealing with this new environment. And once again, we just completely want to stress that we recognize and appreciate all of the very, very hard work that went into this back to school plan. These are just a few very small improvements that students think could be made in a very, very well run and efficient system otherwise. We do plan on sharing our survey results with Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons and Associate Director Bogue, and we are completely open to any questions or comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your report. I understand Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons would like to speak.
Thank you very much, Chair Gerbentz. I wanted to thank both our student trustees for their work and for so eloquently sharing. This year has definitely been a challenge. It's been a challenge for staff and for students. We are in a new learning model. 2 courses is not 4 courses. The days are long, the work is loaded. That works for students and for staff. There are definitely challenges within this. Brightspace is a new learning management system that's been mandated in the province, that every board requires one. And of course, there's a learning curve, and there's one for students and for staff. I wanted to share a statistic that I think, with a smile on my face, shares that despite these challenges, students are doing really, really well. Our Quad 1 data results are in, and 97.2% of you earned your credits this past quad. And I think that's phenomenal. And in fact, it's actually higher than this time last year. I know it's quads to semesters, but if we look at last year's semester 1, the number was 96.5. And so when you speak of the challenges that you're experiencing, and I know I hear from the challenges that teachers are experiencing, that is something to be very, very proud of. And it even more so in the face of the challenges that you've identified. You spoke too about the opportunities for social interaction and for extracurricular opportunities. And I echo that sentiment very much. It's hard not to have human contact as human beings. And rest assured that there's lots of conversation going on about how we might return to sports when it's safe to do so. OFSA is but one body. They are the governing body within the province, but they're not the only way to participate. And as you mentioned, there are students who are participating in the communities where communities have made it safe. We have some hurdles to overcome in the form of busing and transportation and midday dismissals and all those other pieces, but we are having those ongoing conversations. And I was so happy to hear that you'll share results with Associate Director Bogue and myself when you have them. I would very much like to see them in detail and share them with the program department and others so that we can ensure that we are responsive to all of those concerns. So thank you both very much.
Thank you, Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons. I'm going to go to the speakers list now. We do have a couple of people on. Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much, Chair Gerbentz. Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons has actually answered the question that I had. My question was simply, what are the next steps in this, in responding to this very thoughtful report with lots of positive suggestions for our staff? And so my question was, where does this report head next? But Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons has already outlined the next steps. So pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next speaker is Trustee Oliver.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to our student trustees, Badia Lankara and Trustee Taylor. I just want to thank you for this wonderful report, a very comprehensive report. You've done a great job in collecting student voice and bringing it to the boardroom table. Students have identified some real everyday issues and provided some very practical recommendations, and that's wonderful. And it's great for senior staff to hear that, and hopefully they'll be able to collaborate and come up with some really good solutions for that. And I was pleased to hear Superintendent Hunt Gibbons' feedback as well, particularly around the subject of clubs and sports. As a mom of a secondary student, I can appreciate how important that is to all students. And I'm glad that some conversations will be happening in terms of how do we bring sports back safely into our schools. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Trustee Oliver. There are no other speakers on the speakers list. Do you want to? Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, like, a lot of the I guess, like, the concerns that we brought up, like, they're really, I don't want to call them simple, but I think there's, like, simple solutions to them. And it could be as simple as just a reminder. So, like, when students talk about mask breaks, like, that was a common theme in many of the responses. But it's honestly, like, the solution is as simple as just reminding, you know, staff to maybe take their students out for a walk for 5 minutes. So while the extracurriculars and the sports is a bit more complicated, I guess I just wanted to highlight that, like, the plan is working so well that, like, a lot of the suggestions we have are fairly simple, and they just serve as they're just really just reminders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Vidyalankara. I'm so happy to hear the student voice and such a comprehensive look at what the issues students are having. It is wonderful to hear that, and it's wonderful that you're here to bring that to the table, to let staff know, to let trustees know. I think that is fabulous. I really do appreciate the student trustee position at this board and the student voice that you bring to it. Okay, so the next item, we don't have any more speakers on the speakers list. So the next item is actually not on the public. I just noticed it's not on the public agenda, but trustees did receive it a few days ago. And it is number 621, Employment Equity Policy Report 20139. And this is one of the action items for the December 16th meeting. So this was submitted by Director Miller and Superintendent Taha.
Thank you, Chair Grabentz. I'm just going to say a few words, and then I will turn it over to Superintendent Taha and Dr. Jewel Amoa. But I do want to this has not appeared on the agenda because very late in November, the Minister of Education announced that there was going to be a change in hiring policies for boards, and there were a number of consultations. I was asked. Superintendent Taha was actually one of the main people himself. Someone from Hamilton Wentworth District School Board and a couple of other superintendents of HR around the province have done tremendous work on this. The reason it has come so late to the board is because we have to have a policy in place by December 31st. And we only received the draft copy of it a few weeks ago. So there's been a great deal of work to do this, to get the policy together. And we decided that we better get a copy to the Board of Trustees this evening so that they can have some consideration for it prior to it coming back to the board for approval on December 16th, which would be the last board meeting before December 31st, in which case we are required to have the policy in place. It reflects the growing reality of the lack of equity, shall we say, and inclusion around this province in many of our boards in terms of hiring. And this new policy and the admin procedure that we have developed will reflect the spirit of that and the letter of it. So with that, I will turn it over to Superintendent Taha. I do apologize to trustees that it came late, but we kind of had no choice but to get it late. As of Friday, just last week, Superintendent Taha and Dr. Jewel Amoa we're still mean about what goes in it, how do we fix it, and so on. That's why we couldn't get it to you sooner. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Superintendent Taha.
Thanks, Director Miller, through you, Chair Gerbent, to the Board of Trustees. You've captured it very, very well, Director Miller, and we do apologize for this late agenda item. So again, before you for recommendation is a revised employment equity policy for approval. And as Director Miller pointed out, the revocation of Rec 274 is really the impetus behind this. It is what compelled school boards to develop and establish a policy and a procedure with respect to their teacher hiring practices. As pointed out in the report, the revocation of Rec 274 was only one action of a series of actions that the government has taken over the last several years to, again, address inequities in school boards, in public education, that is, that obviously adversely impact the student experience and the employee experience. What we have done, even though the revocation and the corresponding policy program memoranda required boards to establish a teacher hiring policy and practices and procedures, what we felt would be appropriate is that we have an employment equity policy that really speaks to our hiring practices and our methodology with respect to the hiring of all of our staff, not only teachers. So what you will see is a policy that speaks to the hiring of all of our employees, not exclusively for teachers. But as Director Miller pointed out, we will also have an administrative procedure that will also come your way for input and information that really speaks to the very specifics of how we transaction and operationalize the commitments that we make in this policy. As far as the objectives, if you refer to the policy, you will see that it's structured in a way under the principles section that really capture the values and the objectives of the PPM. Ultimately, as pointed out in the presentation with respect to our equity action plan and the way forward, make no mistake, our commitment hasn't wavered to hiring and promoting the most qualified staff. And also our commitment hasn't wavered or shaken with respect to increasing the representation of historically marginalized, underrepresented communities. And obviously the elimination of barriers in our hiring cycles, in our selection, recruitment, and evaluation. So those are the objectives. And also not only it's the objective to increase visual representation or the representation of our staff, it's really about investing in other skill sets across all levels of the organization as it relates to equity and human rights competencies. And when I speak to equity and human rights competencies, I'm referring to the idea that we all have to have skills, we have to have knowledge, we have to have values and principles that allow us to perform our jobs and our duties to an acceptable standard. So it's not only about hiring for representation, it's also about hiring for competencies, for human rights and equity competencies. I'd like to also thank, as Director Miller pointed out, several people that have contributed to this report. Obviously, Dr. Jula Moa was instrumental in that, Superintendent Ita and his equity team, the senior admin team as well as the HR department. And again, it's in draft form for your input, feedback, and revisions before it becomes official. And it will also be receiving legal review. I'm not sure, Dr. Jula Moa, if you want to add anything to my commentary, or we're happy to answer questions.
Through you, Madam Chair. No, Superintendent Taha, I think you've accurately captured the report and its purposes as outlined.
Okay, so looking to the speakers list to see if any trustees have any questions about this employment equity policy. I know we have, it comes again. I see Vice Chair Al Harrison is on the list. Go right ahead, Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Hi, through you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of questions about the policy. I think that it's a really important statement and restatement of commitments to hiring a diverse and representative group of leaders for the system, group of staff for the system. And I also think your point about and hiring for those who are very, very well qualified is also an important piece. And under qualifications, I just wonder, what are human rights competencies as mentioned under monitoring and evaluation? Because it is a great term, but I think that, well, I'm curious about what the specifics are. What does that mean?
I can start, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Amoa. I'll speak from through a human resources lens. So as I mentioned earlier, a competency is really a set of skills, a knowledge base, values, principles that allow an individual to perform to a certain level, hence the word competence. In practical terms, I would say a competency from a human resources perspective is the idea that when you recruit or select and assess an individual's suitability for a position, regardless of the position, you should seek out their level of competency as it relates to their human rights and equity acumen, let's say. So for example, we wish our hiring managers to be equity and human rights competent in the sense that they're aware of the laws of the land. They're aware of our policies and procedures that allow us to intervene when we see objectionable behavior. They're able to link their responsibilities and their duties to the mission of the board, and that is student achievement. The equity is not something that sits on the sidelines. It's part of what you do every day. So it's no different than emotional intelligence, for example. When you hire an individual for their superb technical skills, you're also wishing to hire someone with a high emotional intelligence IQ. I see it as not dissimilar to that from a human resources perspective. Dr. Julamore, you might want to add additional commentary to this.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to you, Madam Vice Chair. The only thing I would add, perhaps, to what Superintendent Taha has explained is that human rights competencies would include actually some of the things that Superintendent Etoff referred to when he was speaking about the Human Rights Action and Accountability Plan, and he made particular reference to culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy, to inclusive design, to really intentional techniques to facilitate inclusion in the classroom, techniques to speak to the different identities and different experiences of students. So the ability to navigate those differences, the ability to provide supports, not just in the form of accommodation, but substantive learning supports that speak to student experience, student identity, student background. So all of those are human rights competencies, are the ability to facilitate an inclusive environment in the classroom or in the workplace, as the case may be.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you. It's twofold, and I have forwarded a couple of potential edits for consideration, and I just wanted to make sure that my colleagues were also aware, just so we're on the same page. Or you can say, if not, firstly, it's just about the use of the word "our" and how that can be perceived as paternalistic and showing ownership. So just in the spirit of the intent of this particular policy, I wonder if that can be changed, as well as just to revisit the LGBTQ acronym, because I know it changes, it's an evolving thing, but I just would request that it's as inclusive as possible at the date of potential adoption of this. And then just lastly, there is a lot of, I'm just going to say, fancy talk in the policy. And as we came into this meeting tonight, I was thinking back to how I never thought I would be able to understand or talk in a certain way that people talk around the board table. And it seems I've come to that spot now and I'm a bit more comfortable. But for somebody who's just looking at this and wonders, well, what does that all mean? Is there going to be a procedure that operationalizes this, that has more of the specifics and maybe some more plain language in it? Or will there be a plain language side piece that goes with?
So I can certainly answer this question, Vice Chair Al Harrison, and certainly defer to Dr. Amoah for further commentary. I want to point out that the ingredients in the policy are more or less prescribed for us by the policy program memoranda, and you are quite right. It's quite a long document. And it's rich, and much of the nomenclature and the phraseology is perhaps new to all of us. I don't disagree with you. We've tried our best to make it as simple as possible without compromising its content. So I will again give it a second look for sure to see if there's any revisions or simplifications that we can add. And yes, there will be an administrative procedure, an even fancier one and a longer one, probably anywhere from 5 to 10 pages to really define and articulate how we're going about to achieve all of these aspirational goals. And a lot of the PPM stuff is very operational. How are you going to have a conflict of interest policy? How are you going to score your interviews? How are you going to select candidates? And it's almost like a guide. If you recall, we've released an interim guide for our principals on the heels of this revocation. So we'll probably mirror that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of, I've learned quite a bit through this process myself, from Dr. Jewel Amoah and others on the team and the equity team. And the notion of a competency was something that I had to really, from an equity perspective, learn. So yes, I'm with you on that one. Dr. Amoah?
Dr. Amoah, you're still on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to you, Madam Vice Chair. I think Superintendent Taha has captured it quite well. Indeed, 97%, I would say, of the language in the policy is taken from the ministry's draft. So I think it's an indication of language that the ministry is moving towards using and how they frame issues around human rights and equity in the context of employment. I think that's all I wanted to say, in addition to everything Superintendent Taha had said.
Okay, Vice Chair Al Harrison, do you have a further question? You're the only person on the speakers list, that's why I'm asking. No, you're done? Okay. Okay, so now we are up to 6.3 for information for this evening's meeting. We are up to 6.3.1, Human Rights, Equity, Action, and Accountability Plan, the way forward. So this is the report that goes along with the presentation earlier. Superintendent Etoff, did you have anything further to add to this?
No, I do not, Chair Grants.
Okay, thank you very much. And trustees, did you have any further questions that you might have thought of from the time we had the presentation? Nope, I don't see anything. So thank you very much for all your work on that. And now we are up to 6.3.2, COVID-19 schools update. Director Miller, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Grabentz, and I'll turn it immediately over to Superintendent Ruddock.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to all trustees. Just a few things to update you on this evening. You may have already heard, but there have been a few funding announcements recently. First, the stabilization funding, and that's for all school boards to receive funding to bridge the gap between the decline in enrollment and projections. For Halton, that's 995 ADE. We are below our original projection. And this is as a result of kindergarten students who didn't come into our system as anticipated, some families who have chosen to homeschool their students rather than choose an in-person or virtual learning model. We also don't have the international students that we had originally anticipated, and overall lower migration to the region. So there's still details to be shared from the ministry, and the finance department is working through a revised estimates, and more information will be coming to the board on December 16th. The second funding announcement was the high priority COVID funding, and this is federal funding that was released to the areas in Ontario that are identified as the red zone, which of course Halton is in. For Halton, it means $2.1 million to address our local needs, including teaching or school support staff, custodial staff, and technology. And then an additional $50,000 was provided to assist with technology for students in care facilities. So as I say, the finance department is, or the business department is currently working through all of that, and more information to come on in the revised estimates. And we certainly appreciate the work that the ministry and COSBO have done through the budget funding gaps working groups to get this funding into our board. We continue to talk about appropriate activities in our schools with the significant IPAC measures that all of our staff and students are managing. And we continue to place an emphasis on fundraising, but for charities and community organizations that support students and families in need through these challenging times. We know that this fundraising focus can give our students and our communities a really positive focus and a sense of belonging around a shared purpose. And we have decided to pause fundraising for schools because schools essentially have a significant amount of funds that they weren't able to spend from last year's fundraising initiatives when the schools were closed in March. And so those funds have been rolled over in school accounts. And we also had schools roll over some significant funds in their school budgets or decentralized budgets because those funds weren't able to be spent throughout the closure last year. And so we feel that our schools are in a very good shape, and we know that fundraised dollars have a very specific legislative purpose, and so with some of the restrictions that are in place, our schools can't spend fundraised dollars the way they must be spent. And so we are encouraging fundraising, but encouraging fundraising for those in need in our community. The other piece that we had paused at the beginning of the year was grad photos, and we know that this is very important to our students and our families. And now that we have a good handle on the operation of schools and the IPAC measures to keep everybody safe, we are moving forward with schools organizing grad photos for students. Some guidance has been developed for schools to use to ensure that the process that they implement in schools is safe and honoring those IPAC measures. And so we'll start to see that photographers in schools likely early in the new year. And that is everything for the report today.
Thank you very much. I'm looking to the speakers list, and Trustee Reynolds is on it.
Thank you, through the chair. My comment or question would be regarding the fundraising for school councils, the pause in the fundraising. I've heard from a number of school chairs the request to, I would say, reflect that decision to keep fundraising paused. There is a couple of concerns that bubbled up, primarily focused on the lack of clarity on giving clear direction to schools as to what fundraising activities are absolutely okay, what are not. We've heard that some fundraising in terms of charities is encouraged, but I think there's quite a bit of confusion and perhaps a request to have a document or a clear direction on that can give councils clarity on what's in scope and what's out of scope. Because currently, as you know, we have our fundraising administrative procedure, but it does not address anything with respect to the pandemic. And certainly councils are sensitive to the need to respect not having activities in school, being very mindful of making asks to families. But there are families who would love to help out, and there's also families within the schools that needs. I think the school councils, or actually I received a letter from Glenview Parent Council who actually asked for us to remove the moratorium on fundraising and in this place offer clear guidelines and direction how they can create new fundraising objectives that reflect our new reality and allow them to have meaningful work in their schools. So I'm just wondering, I don't know if any other trustee has had this bubble up at their council meetings, but I'd like to know whether there is a direction to create clear guidelines in the absence of this messaging not being in our admin procedure, and whether there is a commitment to maybe rethinking this pause if it's operated in a with clear guidelines moving forward. So I'm not looking to direct the director, but I definitely do think our school communities have been getting their messaging through the school council emails, and following those threads of information they're long, they're confusing. They just want a paper in hand that they can take to their school councils that clearly identify what's in scope, what's out of scope, and when they could expect that this pause, this reflection changes.
I guess I will start, and then I'm going to Superintendent Ruddock. I will turn this over to Superintendent Pennyfather in a second. Yeah. I acknowledge the comments you. Sorry, through you, Chair Grabens, to Trustee Reynolds. I acknowledge the comments you've made and perhaps some of the frustrations of some school councils. The pause, as I'm sure trustees can appreciate, is for very good reasons. It's to keep people safe. It's to avoid fundraising activities that involve our students and or parents in which public health guidelines might be compromised and we have no ability to supervise. But we haven't really paused fundraising. We've paused fundraising from the perspective of not running them in the schools and involving our students and staff. But we have provided, and which Superintendent Pennyfather will describe in a minute, we have provided some guidelines and directions to our principals around what can be done and what cannot be done. I would also like to comment that many of our schools, in fact, virtually all of our schools have had fundraising done in the past, and they have money that was destined for a particular project, and they have not yet spent it because they cannot spend it yet. So it's been allowed to be rolled over, and it probably will be rolled over again because, so I just give an example, money raised for a school playground. Well, we couldn't install it at this time anyway, so the money's still just sitting there and it's rolled over. So that's the kind of climate which has caused us to do this. Fundraising, we have also, primarily as a bit of a background, in secondary schools, fundraising is really driven by students. Students determine what they're going to fundraise for, and they have staff advisors, of course, and so on, and sometimes parent involvement. But often they don't have any parent involvement at all. It's just the students select something that they want to raise funds for, and away they go. Elementary, it is driven by parents, and often it's to do something in consultation. Because if we recall, parent councils were set up to be a council, an advisory group to the principal of the school. They weren't actually, their origins weren't not to be fundraisers. They were to counsel with the school, and of course, but they do that, and they advise with the principal, and then they raise funds for things that principals have identified that their school could be used for. So I just wanted to give that context first, and I will turn it over to Superintendent Pennyfather to describe in more detail about what exactly is going on now.
Thank you. Through the chair to Trustee Reynolds. First of all, more clarity can always help, and I'd be happy to produce a one-pager that really tightly outlines it. I think that that never hurts. We have sent out communication, and I had a 4-bullet one that went to our school council's conference. Our principals, I believe, are well aware that the two defining things that we are that we have put in place is, number one, it has to be for a charity, not for the school, and number two, it has to support the COVID guidelines. So we can't have things dropped off, picked up, that kind of thing. Having said that, we're very happy to encourage schools to support those organizations that really help our local families. Examples are Halton Food for Thought, Food for Kids, Food for Life, Halton Learning Foundation. They all, throughout the pandemic, one of the biggest things that they've done is help with food security. And in the thick of it last spring, these organizations were really great and worked really well with us. So we really encourage that. We also have our business services department is supporting schools that want to set up for charitable donations. They can do it two ways, essentially. They can donate directly to the charity and encourage parents to do that. And they could send them a link or put something on their website. Or we can use our school cash online, and they could do a donation through that and then the school would collect the money, and a check would go to that organization. And our business services is happy to help with that, and have already set that up for some schools. It's pretty thorough between Superintendent Ruddock and Director Miller's description of it. But one thing that I want to reiterate is we also want to give schools some latitude, because it's best when they choose the charities that make sense to them, and they might have a tradition of supporting a certain charity, or best case scenario is that a charity is chosen that reflects student voice and choice. And this has happened happens regularly in secondary, but I would say now with a lot of the social justice clubs that have been in elementary, we have young students who are pretty amazing at launching campaigns, and we would encourage that, and we want to help them with that. So and when our charities contact us and say, can you send this information on, we are happy to. We in beginning of November, Halton Food for Thought, for example, sent out an appeal which went on to principals through the principals conference, and we just sent one this week as well. So we're happy to connect folks with these very worthwhile groups that have really done amazing things, and really found a way to help our kids, because they had to learn how to fundraise differently at their level, and they had to learn how to deliver the goods differently at the school level. So it's been a learning curve for all of them. But I don't mind your clarity suggestion at all, and we'll get that out quickly, and we'll make it for both the school councils and for the principals, so they all get the same doc and can see the choices and clear any of that up. Happy to do that.
Follow up, please.
Yes,
thank you so much for providing some clarity in this public forum. And thank you for coming up with some one-pager. I know that that was reiterated by a number of different councils, just having something in hand that they could share with people to show this is the direction that we're working under in this pandemic pause of fundraising. But these are the opportunities because I know that many of the schools, had a lot of good ideas and had been even connected with local businesses who wanted to partner with families and do something. So I'm sure they'll be very grateful to have something in hand that just that relieves that anxiety and giving them more clarity and comfort to know that what they're doing is in support of our board too. So thank you.
And through you, Chair Grabans, to Trustee Reynolds, please know that our intention was never to deter. It was perhaps our own anxiety around ensuring that our students remain safe and our staff remain safe, and our stressed out, our staff, which has been working under pretty challenging conditions, didn't have another layer added onto them. But we really do appreciate the work of parents in supporting our schools, particularly around these kinds of actions and activities that just makes our schools and our board a better place. So it's the intent was never to deter or prevent. It was to let's try to figure this out first so that we can ensure everybody is comfortable and feels safe.
Thank you for the clarity.
Okay, thank you. And next on the list is Trustee Daniele.
Thank you very much. And I was tweaked to this when you talked about the grad photos. And I'm wondering if there's been discussions around the graduations already. I know it's only December, it's barely December, but I know that I've already gotten an inquiry that students who are in grade 8 and doing school virtually will apparently not be invited to the school for graduation ceremony. And I'm wondering what discussions are happening around that. And can you please help me with some context?
Thank you. Through the chair to Trustee Daniele. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask Superintendent Newton to speak to that question.
Thank you, Superintendent Ruddock, and through the chair to Trustee Daniele. We have not had any discussions about graduations for grade 8 or grade 12 at this point. However, we can assure you two things. One, any student that's in any virtual school will receive their diploma from their home school where they left to go to virtual. So that's the first thing that we can put out there. And the second thing that we will do is definitely we will be working with HSPA, which is the Secondary Principal Association, to ensure that students will be invited to partake in their home school graduation, whether that is virtual or in person, that we are committed to that. Part of that, Trustee Daniele, is that we believe as a group of principals in our system that we own our children. And whether they're in virtual for one quad or the whole year, we believe that together we own them back in our home schools and very much want to keep families connected. So we are beginning those talks starting in January, but we can assure you that the home school and the virtual school will work collectively together and that they will be included in any home school celebrations to celebrate such a momentous stance of graduation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
Okay, and the last person on the list right now is Trustee Oliver.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Superintendent Ruddock. And thank you for addressing the question or the issue around grad photos. That was actually on my mind. And I'm wondering if there's any plan for the elementary, individual and class photos. That's been such a tradition. I know many families count on those pictures. And for secondary students, I guess there are student cards. That's another thing that's kind of a tradition for them. So I'm wondering if you can speak to that. Thank you.
And through the oh, my mute button's having a mind of its own. I'm going to go over to Superintendent Newton.
Thank you, Superintendent Ruddock, and again through the chair to the trustee Oliver. Yes, grad photos are very important, but we also recognize that school photos are also important. At this time, we've been working actually through July up until this point to focus with photography companies and public health through Superintendent Ruddock on what are the parameters that we would put in place. At this point, we feel let's give it a trial run with our grad students first and see how that partakes out, and then we'll be moving into school photos, depending on where we're at with the wicked challenges that we face right now in this pandemic. However, saying that, principals have already talked about creative ideas, which could include having students take their own photo with their parents and send it in, and then they make a collage that way. I can assure you that we're not lining up students in a collage in person, but with the talented folks that we do have both in our schools and with our photo companies, that we can stretch some of those pieces and make that happen. In terms of student cards, this year we rolled over our internal system Trillium, so that all the information that it's from the previous year with photos automatically got moved over onto our computer banks, so that we would have photos definitely available in our computer system. But in terms of doing student cards, at this point, again, once we did school photos, that would be something that perhaps a student card would use. Most students, for student card purposes, are for library checkout of resources, and hence we're not checking out library resources so easily right now. And the second piece is for probably store discounts to prove that you're a student. Some stores, particularly local businesses I know, will offer students some discounts. So again, using last year's student card or perhaps other ID to prove, and maybe wearing their hoodie with their high school name on it would give them that edge. So I do appreciate the question very much, Trustee Oliver, and we are working very hard. We know these things are very important to students and families. So thank you for your patience.
Okay, there are no other speakers on the speakers list for this topic, and I've had a request for a recess. So it's going to just be a 5-minute recess, and I will see everybody back here at 9:15. Okay, welcome back. We are now up to 6.4 notices of motion. I'm going to look to the speakers list to see if we have any notices of motion. Seeing none, we are up to 6.5, the director's report.
Thank you, Chair Gerbentz. Surprise, surprise, I have nothing to report this evening.
I'm absolutely shocked. Okay. Next, we are up to communications from the chair. And I just have a couple of things. The first is that we will be having a board meeting on December the 16th. However, the time is going to be different. It is going to be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So, and as well, we have striking committee next week as part of committee of the whole. And I just want to remind all trustees that you do have a form that you've been sent to express interest in the various committees. And the due date for that form, I believe, is Friday. So if you could please, if you haven't filled it out, please do so. It makes life a lot easier when we get down to striking committee next week. Next, we are up to committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? Trustee Oliver, go right ahead.
Okay, good evening. So last night at SEAC, there was an election for the chair and vice chair positions. Alison Brindle, who's the Learning Disabilities Association of Halton Hamilton representative, was acclaimed as chair, and Lucille Morris, the community member at large, was acclaimed as vice chair. Also, SEAC received a presentation by staff from school programs and student services about the early years assessment and supports, namely assessments and supports for the youngest students, kindergarten through grade 3, relating to literacy and oral communications. And I'll submit a report for our next package. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Gray, I see you waving your hand.
Thank you very much through the chair. Earlier today, I sent out to all trustees a report of the activities of the OPSPA Board of Directors meeting held last Saturday, November 28th. Trustee Daniele and I were in attendance. I find that this report that has been put together is fairly comprehensive, but I'm certainly willing to take any questions on that report, or perhaps speak to it in a better time frame at the next committee of the whole during the committee report section. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Looking to the speakers list to see if there are any other committee reports. Seeing none. So we're up to trustee questions and comments. If you do have any questions or comments, please add your name to the speakers list. Trustee Garrett, go right ahead.
Thank you. This will be very quick through you to the director. Just touching base on where we're at with conversations with Laurier University and our new Milton Southwest #1 high school, specifically around ISTEM. Do we have any updates?
Through you, Chair Gerbentz, to Trustee Garrett, thank you for that question. I will just begin with a little bit of the history of it, and then I will turn it over to Superintendent Newton. About this time last year, I think it was it was around this time, because I remember it was pretty cold. I was at a function in Milton in which the president of Conestoga College and the president of Laurier University was there, and they were talking about the Milton education development area, and they were talking about forging a relationship with the Halton District School Board at that time. And then sometime later on, maybe a few weeks after that, Superintendent Newton and myself were at a function in which we spoke with Laurier and Conestoga College, And then there was some further discussions. There have not been many since because of the pandemic, but I will let Superintendent Newton complete the conversation.
Thank you, Director Miller, and over to Trustee Garretts. We are really excited to be building contacts and information to link with our new high school, and particularly with Milton's Education Village and the dream that that will become. We're particularly looking at building relationships along the 401 corridor, and I can tell you that Superintendent Blackwell and myself attended a symposium 2 years ago already in the making that addressed all of the mayors that are along the 401 corridor and the universities and colleges that were there. And we were able to make some connections and start the dialogue well before we had the diggers in the ground for the Milton New High School. So those contacts very much are there, and we will continue to build upon those. Also, Conestoga College, through Superintendent Hunt Gibbons and secondary school programs, have already commenced a dual credit program with Conestoga. So again, linked to Milton in that sense, and will further deepen our relationship with them. And in terms of Laurier as well as Waterloo, we're looking to build those pieces as we move out towards that area and bringing them into Milton. And while we haven't had formal meetings this fall, obviously, because of the pandemic, we certainly are connecting with them with regards to the iSTEM program and building upon that in the new Milton High School as well. So Superintendent Blackwell, Hunt Gibbons, and myself, along with Director Miller, will continue to be engaged in those conversations the further we get along into the new year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There are no other speakers on the speakers list. So instead of adjournment, we need to rise into public. I mean, rise and reconvene. We need to go into private session. So I need someone to make a motion to do that. Trustee Gray, thank you. Seconded by Trustee Shuttleworth. Thank you very much. Quick shooting your hands up there. Is there any discussion at all on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? I have 10 responses so far. Who am I missing? Oh, 12. 12 responses so far. And we're just missing one person. That carries. We'll determine who's okay. Collard, actually. I don't see Trustee Collard. Might be glitching. There we go. Thank you very much. That carries unanimously. So thank you very